Hello and welcome to your day 7 on the Android application development tutorials. Over here we will be using a different type of application called as content providers. Content providers allow us to fetch content from various applications. In this tutorial we'll be learning how to fetch the content from contacts and from messages, so that whatever content you get from these content providers, you'll be able to display them and use them in your applications. Let's move forward. First of all, let's understand the concept behind content providers. Content providers allows us to access contents which are stored by other applications. The contents which are stored by other applications can be accessed with the help of URI, or Universal Resource Identifier. The URI gives us the name of the database where the information is stored by the content provider. Okay, so wherever the information is stored by the content provider, the database name is given by the URI. For example, in our previous case of SQLite database, the database name was DBF cities. Similarly, the URI will give the name of the database to us. With that database name, we can fetch the records of that content provider. The following applications are by default installed with Android. These are the contacts and the messages. These two applications give us the contacts provider and the messaging provider, by which we can get the data from the contact book or from the inbox or outbox of the application. Let's check out the contacts provider. Using the contacts provider, we can read contact information on the device. The main class for accessing any contact data is contacts contract. Okay, that's a class called as contacts contract. Using this class, you can access any contact data on the cell phone. The URI where the contact data is placed is called as contacts contract.data.content URI. This is the URI, or the Universal Resource Identifier, or the Uniform Resource Identifier, which gives you the name of the database where the contacts have been stored. The contacts contract returns us data in the form of a cursor. That's very obvious. We can use this cursor to extract the contacts data. All contact data is stored in the form of strings in the SQLite database. That is, all the names, all the phone numbers, or all the email IDs, etc. Everything is stored in the form of strings inside the SQLite database. Each contact information is stored as a separate field in the database. Okay, so if you have a contact having a name, a phone number, and an address, all this information will be stored in the form of a separate field inside the SQLite database. Let's check out how do we use the contacts provider. To access the contacts content provider, we must use the following steps. The step 1 is you should add the permissions to read the contacts in the Android manifest. As we had seen earlier, all the permissions that we want, we should add those permissions inside the Android manifest file. The permissions in our case will be android.permission.read contacts. This is the first time in the course where we are adding the permissions to read or write something from the device. So we will add the permission of android.permission.read contacts. Once we are done with adding the permissions, then we must query the SQLite database with the contacts URI. So we'll be doing this with the help of the query method. You have to create a managed cursor to manage the contacts data. Normally, whatever data you get from the SQLite database is in the form of cursors, but those cursors have to be managed by us. If you want to have the contacts data, that contacts data is in the form of content provider. So content providers give you something called as a managed cursor. That managed cursor is similar to a cursor, but the class name has been changed to managed cursor. Then you can read contact data from this cursor and store it locally and use this local data inside our applications. So far so good. So let's start by reading some contacts. Let's create a new project called as contacts demo and make the layout to look like this. We have two controls over here. First of all is the button to read contacts, and second is the list view, wherein we'll be adding all the contacts from the contact book. Let's write the Java code for it. First of all, inside the onCreate, we'll get the reference of the btn read contacts, and when someone clicks on that button, we'll have btn read contacts dot set onClick listener. Inside the onClick of this, we'll create an array list for the list view. So we'll have array list, arr list contacts equals to new array list. This array list will contain all the contacts data from the contact book. Then we'll be reading the contacts. To read the contacts, we have to first define the URI of the contacts, and we have to define the projection, that is the number of fields that we want to fetch from the contact book. We want to fetch the ID of the contact, the display name of the contact, and data 1 of the contact. Each contact can have 15 different data fields. Those can be the phone number, the address, the email ID, etc. Out of that, we are accessing the first data field. Normally, the data 1 fields contain the phone number of the contact. Okay. Then we have to query the SQLite database with this contact URI. The contact URI has been passed over here. The URI of contacts is passed over here. The second argument is the number of fields that you want to get from this. We want the ID, the display name, and the data 1. So we are passing that field over here, and we don't want any order by clause or a group by clause or a where condition. So we will keep that thing as null null null. Once we get the managed cursor, then we will say start managing cursor. The start managing cursor function will actually start managing the cursor and fetching all the records from the database. Once the records are fetched, then we can check if managed cursor.move to first is true. That indicates we have got at least one record in database. So we'll have a do loop, and let's define a string. Inside the string, we'll get the ID of the contact. To get the ID, we will say managed cursor.getString. This managed cursor is an object of the cursor that we had in the previous slide. .getString will get a field from that managed cursor, and we want to get the ID. So we will say managed cursor.get column index contact.data.id. So this will give us the field name of ID. From this field name, we will get the column index from this function, and we'll pass this column index to the getString function so as to get the ID. Similarly, we'll do for the name and for the phone number. Then we'll create a string. The string will contain the ID, comma, the name, comma, the phone number, and we'll add this string to the list. So we'll add this by saying arr list contacts.add. This will actually add the string to the array list. Once the string is added, we will go to the while loop to the next record by saying managed query.move to next. If the next record is present, this loop will continue to run. If the next record is not present, the while loop will break and you'll come out of it. Once we are done, then we'll be first closing the cursor, and then we will update the list view by saying lstcontacts.set adapter, a new array adapter. This is the name of the activity .this, comma, android.r.layout.simple list item 1. That means we want to have the contact data in the form of a simple list, comma, the list of contacts that we have just fetched. This will actually add all the contacts into your list view where you can view them. So let's do it and check out if we can get the output with all the contacts inside our application. So let's do it for the contacts provider. Let's create the new project, file, new, Android application project. Let's give the name as contacts demo, package name as com.fitech.contactsdemo. Let's choose the API to be Android 2.3.1. Let's uncheck this. Next. Let me give the title as contacts demo and click on finish. A new project will be created in the workspace. First of all, as I want to read the contacts, so I have to add the permission to read the contacts. The permission that I have to add would be added inside the manifest file. So let me double click on the manifest file. This is the first time that we are adding permissions. So double click on the manifest file. You will be having the permissions tab over here. Click on the permissions tab. Click on add. say uses permission, because we want our application to use a permission. Click on this and press OK. Give the name of the permission to be android.permission.read contacts. I hope we are getting this thing. As you press Ctrl S or save the manifest file, you will be able to get the permissions over here. Now close the manifest file. In the main layout, in the activity main layout, right click on the layout and say change layout to linear layout. Remove this hello world from here. Give a small button and give a list view by going to composite layouts and list view. Right click on the button and say layout with match parent. The text on the button should be read contacts. The ID of the button should be btn read contacts. Save it. Change the ID of the list view to be lst contacts. So far so good. So we have added the permission to read contacts in the manifest file. We have added a button in the main layout which will read the contacts when we click on the button, and all the contacts will be displayed in the list view. To make the coding of this, let's go to the source folder in the package inside the main activity. We don't want this on create options menu, so I'll just remove that part. And over here we'll have a step 1 to get the references. So how do we get the references? We get the reference by saying final button btn read contacts equals to button find view by id r.id.btn read contacts. Then I have a list view, so I'll say final list view lst contacts equals to list view find view by id r.id.lst contacts. When someone clicks on the read contacts, so I have to write the set on click listener for this. This is pretty usual now. Let me just import the on click listener so that the error goes away. Now, once we are inside the on click listener, we have to make the provision to read the contacts with the help of the contacts contract class. First, let me get the URI of it. So if you will just type UR, you'll get URI. Type the URI as contacts equals to contacts contract dot data dot content URI. This will get the URI of the contacts. Then I have to create a projection. So let me make a string projection. This is the array for projection, so I'll just keep it as an array. Inside this array, I want to read the contacts contract dot data dot underscore id, then contacts contract dot data dot display name, and contacts contract dot data dot data1. We just require 3 fields from here. To store these fields, we'll be requiring an array list. So let me create the array list of type string arr contacts equals to new array list of type string. So far so good. Once we are done with this, then we have to read the contacts with the help of the managed cursor. So we'll just write cursor managed equals to managed query. The URI is contacts, the projection is projection. We don't want to have any where clause, and we don't want to sort the contacts, so we'll keep everything as null. Then we have to say start managing cursor, manage cursor. Then I'll say if, we'll check if it has at least one record, dot move to first. If this comes to be true, that indicates that we have at least one record in the cursor. If we have one record, then we'll use a do while loop managed dot move to next. In the do while loop, we will read the id equals to managed dot get string managed dot get column index. The column index that we want is contacts contract dot data dot underscore id. As we know, all the data in the content provider is stored in the form of strings. So we have to say get string. Once we are done with this, we can copy this thing 3 times because we require the ID, the name, and the phone number. To get the name, we have to say manage cursor.getString, manage cursor.get column index, contacts contract data dot display name. It will give me the display name of the person. And similarly, I have to give over here dot data 1. So far so good. Let me create a string str which will contain the ID, comma, the name, comma, the phone number. Let me just add this thing to the array list dot add and the string. So this will first get the record from the managed cursor, add the record in a string, add the string inside the array list, and go to the next record. Once we have gone to the next record and all the records have been passed, then we will have to first close the cursor or say stop managing cursor, the managed cursor, and then we have to update this in the list view. So let's do it. We'll say lst dot set adapter new array adapter, and the context of the application should be main activity dot this. The type of layout that I want is android.r.layout.simple list item 1, and I want the source of data to be ARR contacts. And it will give me an error because I haven't changed the array adapter to type of string. Once I do this, the program will be complete and I'll be able to get all the contacts from the content URI of contacts contract and put all those contacts inside a array list and make that array list inside a list view. Let's run this thing and check out the output. Right click, run as Android application. Run as Android application. So I think we have a device running over here. It is installing the application on the device. Once the application is installed, when you click on read contacts, you should be able to read the contacts. But right now you don't have any contacts in your phone book. To add a contact, click on the home button to go to the main screen. Click on the call button. You'll be getting a layout. This is called as a tabbed layout because you have multiple tabs over here. In the contacts, click on menu and say new contact. Let's add 2 contacts over here. Give the first contact name as Pankaj, Pankaj. Press enter. Let's give the contact name again, Pankaj. Let's go down and give the phone number of the contact to be 9823834698. Once it's done, we will save the contact in a device. Let me just add one more contact. Let me give the contact name over here as AAKASH. Let me give the phone number of Akash to be 9898989898. So done. It will add 2 contacts to my device. Let me now go home and click on the menu and go to contacts demo. Then I click on read contacts. I'll be able to read all the contacts. You might be thinking that why are we getting 4 records when we had only 2? If you will refer back to the lecture, we said that each contact information is stored as a separate field. So this is a separate field, this is a separate field, this is a separate field, and this is a separate field. To segregate those fields, you have to just check if the name is matching. If the name is matching, then you have to just keep the phone number as constant. Okay, so you have to just check on the name. If the name is matching with the record, don't pass that record. If the name is not matching with the record, then you can give the output as the name and phone number. Once we are done with contacts, then we can move on towards reading the inbox messages. You have to first make a note that Android does not provide an inbuilt URI to read inbox messages. For getting the URI inbox, you have to search the Android developer community. That is, you have to go to developer.android.com and search where you can get the URI for the inbox. When I searched it, I found the URI to be content colon slash slash SMS slash inbox. Okay, and for the outbox, it is content colon slash slash SMS slash outbox. The fields which are stored inside the Android's inbox and outbox are the ID, thread ID, address, person, date, body. So the ID indicates the ID of the message. The thread ID indicates to which thread this message belongs. Whenever you will be performing programming with Android, or whenever you will be using an Android cell phone, all the messages are stored in the form of threads. That is, all the messages from a particular user come under a single message. That message, in that message, each sub message has an ID. That ID is called as a thread ID. Then you have the address, that is from which phone number you got this message. You have the person's name, you have the date of message, and you have the body of the message. So these are the fields that are stored inside the Android's inbox outbox. Let's read the inbox messages. We'll create a new project named as messages demo, and we'll make the layout to look like this. Okay, so we have a button to read the messages, and we have a list view. Inside the on create, we'll have the following code. Okay, BTN read messages, we have taken the reference of the button, and we have taken the reference of the list view. Okay, so inside the BTN read messages, we'll have some fields. That is the ID field, the thread ID field, the address field, the person field, the date field, and the body field. Okay, these are the fields which are stored by each message. So we'll first define all these fields. Then we'll create a projection as we did in the last slide for the contacts. Here the projection will contain ID, thread ID, address, person, date, and body. These will be resolved to these strings upon execution. Then we'll have the URI for the messages. The URI for the messages is normally content colon SMS slash inbox, but if you want to have it for outbox, you have to just change outbox over here. If you want to have for sent, you can just change sent over here. Okay, so the syntax goes like this: URI dot with appended path, because you want to append inbox to the content colon slash slash SMS. Then we will parse the URI and we'll append the inbox to it. If you want to have the outbox, you can just replace this by outbox. If you want to have sent, you can just replace this by sent. So far so good. Then the remaining procedure remains same as we did for the contacts content provider. Over here we will have a cursor with the object name as managed cursor equals to managed query. Normally we used to have query, but with the content provider you will have managed query. You have to give the URI, so we'll give the inbox URI. You will have to give the projection, that is the number of fields you want from that. We want the ID, thread ID, address, person, date, body, and pass the remaining field as null, 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 because we don't want the where clause, the order by clause, or group by clause. Then we say start managing cursor. This is required so that Android starts fetching records from that particular cursor. Then we'll get the indexes of the column. We'll get the index of address column, person column, date column, body column, and we'll create a new array list. Why did we get these column indexes? Because if you will not get these column indexes, you will not be able to pass these indexes to the getString method. Whenever you will be saying cursor.getString, at that time we will be requiring the column index. So that's why we have used the column index over here. We want 4 columns out of that. We want address, we want person, we want date, and we want body. So we took these 4 columns and we created a new array list. Inside this array list, we'll be storing all the data about the messages. So we'll say if managed cursor move to first, that is if we are able to go to the first record in the cursor, Then we'll get the address. So we said managed cursor.getString, this address column. This address column was defined in the last slide. That was the index of the column for address. Similarly, we'll get the person, we get the date of message, and we get the body of the message. We'll have a string. Inside that string, we will add address, the person name, a new date time, because this date of message will be in the form of a long value. The long value indicates the number of seconds since January 1, 1970. So you have to convert those number of seconds into a date time format. That is why we will be having a new date. Long.parseLong will convert the string into a long, and we'll get that date and convert it to a string. To Greenwich Mean Time string will convert that complete date into a string, and we'll append that with the body. So we'll get the output like the phone number, the person's name, the date of the message, and the body of the message. Once that is done, we'll add that to the array list, and we'll go to the next record. Okay, this syntax might be very common now because we have used this inside the SQLite project as well. We have used this inside the previous content provider as well, and we're using it inside here as well. Then we'll say stop managing cursor to stop the cursor, and we'll close the cursor. Once we are done, we'll add this to the array list. We'll add this array list to the list view by saying lstmessages.setAdapter. It will set the adapter for this list view. And now let's do it and see if we can get the output. So let's do it for the messages demo. Let's create a new application project, file, new, Android application project, and give the project name as messaging demo, package name as com.fitech.messaging give the build SDK as Android 2.3.1, uncheck on this, next, the title of the application as messaging demo, click on finish to get the application up and running. Over here, we have to first add a permission to read the SMS in the Android manifest file. Go to permissions and click on add. Use this permission. Over here, add the permission to read the SMS. Because from wherever we read the SMS, either from inbox, from outbox, or from sent SMSs, we have to add the permission to read the SMS. In the main XML layout, I want to delete the hello world, change the layout type to linear layout, add a button, and add a list view on the layout. Right click on the button, width as match parent, give the text on this as read messages, the ID of this as btn read messages. Give the ID of the list view to be lst messages and save the layout. When the layout has been saved, you have to write the Java code for it. The Java code in the main activity, just remove the on create options menu, and first let's get the references of the controls. So I'll say final button btn read SMS equals to button find view by ID r.id.btn read messages. Final list view lst messages equals to list view find view by ID r.id.lst messages. When someone clicks on the message button, then we have to set the on click listener for it. We'll have sms.set on click listener, new on click listener, import the on click listener. Over here, we have to first create a complete list of fields that we'll be getting from the inbox. So I'll just paste in some code over here. This code is taken directly from the slides. Here we have to first import the URI over here and import the cursor over here. We will be requiring the ID, the thread ID, the address, the person, date, body, etc. If you want, you can just remove this complete string from here and you can say uri.parse and just give the string over here content colon slash SMS colon or slash inbox. It will give you the content URI for the inbox. Once you're done with this, then the next part is very easy. You have to just simply say if managed cursor dot move to first. If you are able to get the first record of it, then have a do and a while dot move to next. And you have to create an array list over here somewhere. So after the string body, you can create an array list of type string. Let's give the name of this as ARR messages equals to new array list of string. Then over here, I want the body of the message, so I'll say string body equals to managed cursor dot get string and managed cursor dot get column index. The column index that I want is the body column index, so I'll just have a body tag over here. This body will come from this field of body. Then I also require the date of the message, so I'll say string date equals to managed cursor dot get string managed cursor dot get column index, and let me give the column index as date. And let us also give the address of this, so I'll say string address equals to managed cursor dot get string managed cursor dot get column index. That will be for the address. So far so good. Let's add these fields to the string again. I'll say string str equals to from address. Then let's have a comma and let's give the message over here, and we'll say received on, and I'll just keep a date over here. Let's just add this to the array list dot add the string. Let's add this array list to the list view, so I'll have lst dot set adapter new array adapter. Give the context of this as main activity dot this, the texture ID as android dot r dot layout dot simple list item 1, and the content of this will come from the array list. I have to just change this t to be string because I want it to be a string type of an list. If I just right click and run this thing on the Android device, we'll be able to see the output. I click on it. As I have no SMS right now, so I will not be able to get a list over here. To get a SMS, you have to use something called as DDMS or Dalvik Device Monitor Service. To invoke that service, come to Eclipse, go to Window and say Open Perspective DDMS. You click on your device, that is the emulator 5554. On this device, I want an SMS, so I'll say that get the SMS from the number, and the SMS should be hello there. I send the SMS. The SMS will come over here in a quick while. As you can see, the SMS came over here from the DDMS. The DDMS is a tool given to you by the Android SDK. Using that tool, you can actually send SMSs, make voice calls, send GPS data from the Eclipse IDE to the emulator. Now if I click on read SMS, we'll be able to get from the phone number, hello there, received on, and I get a long value over here. This value is nothing but the timestamp of this message. To convert that timestamp to a date, you have to follow a proper syntax. We will say over here string date in terms of string equals to new date. You have to give the long date over here, so I'll say long dot parse long. The date is in the form of a long value, as we can see over here, so we have to convert this from a string to a long. To do that, we will use long dot parse long, and we'll say as to GMT string. It will convert this string to a GMT string. GMT indicates Greenwich Mean Time, and I'll just replace this date over here to date string. Let's now run this thing and see the output of it on the screen. If we are able to get a proper date, it will uninstall the application, install the application back again, and start the activity. Now read SMS, you'll be able to get received on 8th October 2012, 5:27:15 GMT. So this is the date and time when this SMS has been sent from the DDMS. I just click on the DDMS again, send one more SMS from some number. This is a test SMS, and click on send. You'll be able to send the SMS over here. You say read SMSs, you'll be able to read the SMS. This is a test SMS and this is a header SMS.